Okay, we will go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, January 14th, 2015 Resource Management and Administration Committee. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Lathrop,
Right here.
Maxbauer,
Me too.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Klaus,
Here.
Crawford,
Here.
Johnson,
Present.
Kropa.
Yes. Okay. On to first public comment, Ms. Bonnie.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, that being heard, anyone for public comment? And just to let you know, we will have public comment during agenda items too. So, Nick.
Believe it or not, I'm going to want to talk about soil erosion for a brief minute.
Oh, okay.
I have friends downstate who have worked with counties and townships who have farmed out to private individuals their inspections. It doesn't work. The people I've talked to hate it. There's always 2 or 3 inspections every time. Consequently, when that happens, the price of housing goes up. Everyone wants us to build affordable homes. It's really hard to do it when you have 2, 3, 4 inspections, $50 here, $100 there. Pretty soon you're talking a lot of money. And it just keeps adding up. Plus the timing aspect that goes with it. Your interest clock keeps running when you're not being able to work because you're waiting for an inspector to show up. I mean, there's a million reasons why I can come up with to ask you guys to think very, very seriously about what you're doing. We're dealing with professional people here. We're not dealing with common labor. And I don't mean to deride common labor because I am a common laborer. It's an issue of having people who have been trained, who know the community, who know the individual builders, developers, who are capable of making good decisions as opposed to finding some stupid little nitpicky thing so they can come back and enact a second fee or a third fee. I ask you folks to seriously think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will go ahead and close first public comment. On to approval of the, I'm sorry, that's correct. Yep, that was my bad.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the December 10th, 2014 minutes of the Resource Management Committee.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. A quick note there, I am from the land of parks where we have approval of minutes after first public comment. So my bad there. It's kind of built into me, I think, to automatically go that way. So I am sorry about that. On to approval of agenda. We have 2 notes from Chris Kramer for additions. One you will find on the desk, and that is a request to extend time available to use current grant funding for a MSHDA grant, and that is from Jean. And there's 2 items there, and that's going to be an item for immediate approval. The other item to add is the Teamsters Command labor contract, which you received in an email along with the notes from Jean. Those will be added under new business B and then new business C for the Teamsters oh no, that would be under unfinished business C, Teamsters Command Labor Contract. New business B would be the MSHDA grant extension. Also on your desk is a second copy of the snowmobile purchase grant, which you will find already listed under the consent calendar B, number 3. So before we approve the consent calendar, to make sure that you've read the appropriate copy of the snowmobile purchase grant. So I will add those 2 items. Anyone from the public like to add or anything to the agenda? No? Anyone from the commission? Staff? Okay. Need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support?
All those in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
I didn't get a chance to say it. Opposed?
Yes.
Commissioner Max Bauer? Motion passes. Okay, we will go on to consent calendar. I'm looking for them.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Resource Recovery Manager's Report. Number 2, Road Commission Monthly Report. Number 3, Conservation District Monthly Report. Number 4, Veterans Services Monthly Report through December. B, approval. Number 1, Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act, Public Act 152. Number 2, Area Agency on Aging Representative. Number 3, Snowmobile Grant Acceptance and Purchase.
Okay. Would any commissioners like an item removed from the consent calendar?
I would like the road commission report removed.
Okay.
I have a question on that.
We will remove item number A2, Road Commission Monthly Report. Any other commissioners? Sunny?
Madam Chairman, I would ask to have the snowmobile grant accepted and purchase removed, please.
Will do. We will pull B3. Any other commissioners? Anyone from the audience? Or staff? Okay, I just need a motion.
I would move that we approve the consent calendar as amended.
Any discussion at all? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who
Opposed?
supported that?
It was supported by
Commissioner
Bob.
Johnson, yeah.
Opposed? We were good? Okay.
Bonnie hasn't recognized all the new voices
I'm
yet.
trying to be quiet.
Yeah, it does help if you say who made the motion and who seconded it,
Yeah.
because my head's down.
I will do that.
Thanks.
Okay, on to items, on to special orders of business. I'm learning this new order of things. On to special orders of business, we have none. We will pass on to items removed from the consent calendar, and we will begin with item A2, the Road Commission Monthly Report. He just knows. He's a pro.
Good evening, Jim Cook, Grand Traverse County Road Commission, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I had a question on number 1, the core financial management system. It doesn't indicate here whether it was budgeted for. I know something further down the list, it does say that it was budgeted for. Was that budgeted for?
Yeah, actually, we had
Okay.
budgeted $40,000 to either go to a different financial software or fully utilize the software that we currently have.
And you went for a new one?
No, actually, we invested in our current financial software
Okay.
and hardware so we could sort of automate a lot of things that we do and make it more efficient.
Okay, thank you.
While he's up there, any other commissioners, anything for putting Jim on the spot? Okay, we're good.
I guess the one thing I'd like to add is we did have our organizational meeting last week, and so we have a new chair. Bill Mauser is the chair, and then Carl Brown is the vice chair. So
Go for it, Bob.
not that this was in your area, but we talked about it at the previous meetings, Baggs Road.
You were almost out.
Yeah.
Has anything moved towards that again?
No, just because we have some new commissioners, Baggs Road is it's one of those situations. In every county, you have a county line road, and generally you have a county line maintenance agreement. And that's basically an agreement that we agree with other counties, other road commissions, that it doesn't make sense to maintain one half of a road because one half is in their county, one half is in ours, or plow one half and vice versa. So what generally happens is you come to an agreement. Baggs Road is a north-south road, and so the agreement on that one is with Kalkaska County. We maintain the southern half of the eastern county line road, and they maintain the northern half. And so Baggs Road, even though half of it's in Grand Traverse County, is not under our jurisdiction. It's actually under the jurisdiction of Kalkaska County Road Commission. And so, this has been, the residents have been asking for improvements on that road. Actually, Commissioner Mauser and I have been working probably for a couple of years now. We started working with Kalkaska County Road Commission to see if they were interested in doing a project. And we also worked with Whitewater Township and actually Clearwater Township. And we've sort of gone full circle, and nothing's really happened yet. And the bottom line is Kalkaska County Road Commission, Baggs Road's not a priority for them. And they frankly don't have the funds to maintain that road because it's not a priority, and they don't have enough money to maintain the priority roads in their county. So it's a tough situation, and so what we've done is the last meeting, I can't remember if you were at that meeting, Bob, but we met at Whitewater Township probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we met with the townships, we met with Kalkaska County Road Commission, and basically, this agreement, this maintenance agreement that we have says that we won't maintain Baggs Road, that's under their jurisdiction. However, if we were going to do a project, if they wanted to do a project, then that's when we can kind of step outside of that agreement and draw up a separate agreement to jointly partner on a project. So that's what we're trying to encourage them to do. And it sounds like they wouldn't be able to do a project this year, maybe in the next year or two. But we're ready and willing as soon as they are. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Your question is answered.
Yes. Oh, then I would move that we approve the road commissioner's report from December 2014.
Support.
Motion by Crawford, support by Wheelock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to the next one that was removed. That was item B3, snowmobile grant acceptance and purchase. Sunny.
Well, Nate knows the discussion that I'm going to have because I've had it multiple times in the last close to 10 years probably. We were out of the snowmobile ORV business for a long time, probably at least 5 or 6 years, because it just didn't make a lot of sense for us economically to be in that business. There is no way that, you get a call that somebody's on a snowmobile at Ranch Rudolph intoxicated, that we can possibly respond to that and make a difference. That person's in South Boardman by the time we can possibly get there. I contend that, the dollars that we spend on snowmobiles and motorcycles would better be served using them with our road patrol officers. As far as dealing with an intoxicated snowmobiler, I can deal with him at a trailhead or at a road crossing with a patrol car. I don't have to have a snowmobile trying to run up and down and catch him on a marked trail. This is a program that I don't support and haven't supported for a long time, and so nobody's going to be surprised at that. And I understand we get $9,000 worth of money to purchase a snowmobile. The question is, do we need that snowmobile? Are we better off to take the personnel dollars that we have? And I know what the grant money is that we get for not only the purchase, but for the operation of the program. But the fact is that I personally cannot justify the program in the first place, and therefore I can't support the purchase of a new snowmobile. You know, we have 1999 sleds now. I think I just asked Nate, he told me 99 sleds. Yes, they're old. They run fine. They probably don't have 5,000 miles on them. I'd be real surprised if they do. And, you know, I don't know why we would go buy another sled in a program that, you know, at least from my perspective, I don't support in the first place. So I won't be supporting the agenda items. So.
I want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing here. This is two-sided.
The grant is for purchasing of a new snowmobile in the amount of $10,650.
This is the grant that is not to exceed $92.85, correct?
I actually think
85%
that
of the
Mr.
funds.
Wheelock is suggesting, there's actually two separate grant pieces to this.
That's what I'm trying, okay.
One is the $8,600 for reimbursable items through the snowmobile activity grant, and the other is the $92.85 for the purchase of a snowmobile. We are here tonight to request acceptance of both. It is an 85% match for both grants.
Okay, that was the piece I didn't grab out of that. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
We currently have sheriff's deputies on snowmobiles patrolling.
Indeed, we do, yes.
We do. And tell me about that. How widespread is that program? How often are they out there? And how many men does it involve?
They have as many as 3, and we do have, and I told Mr. Wheelock a few moments ago that we have 2 1999 snowmobiles that are the oldest in the grant program for the Department of Natural Resources. We also have 2 newer sleds, 2 new Skidoos that they use. The 299 sleds are not being used on a regular basis right now, so when we do have 3 out, they would have to use an older sled. We don't like that. We like everything to be uniform, make sure it works, whether or not there's, and I can't answer the number of miles on the sled nor hours, but we like things that work. They have to work in emergency response. So yes, we do have snowmobile patrol during the winter, depending on the snow amount and when that snow comes. Trail activity, they patrol mostly on weekends and the times where snowmobile activity is heaviest.
Commissioner Maxwell.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Wheelock. And I know we're going to have this discussion repeatedly on just about every program we have. We have a limited amount of resources, and it's wonderful that they're willing to, the state of Michigan is willing to give us a snowmobile. But there's the operational cost, and really, is that the best use of a deputy's time? And Nate, I just don't think it is. If you can convince me otherwise, I'm willing to hear, but I agree with Commissioner Wheelock. I just don't think that this is a program that I can support. I think our deputies need to be out in patrol cars on the roads.
I agree. If I can convince you, that'd be great. Let's go for a snowmobile ride. There are areas in this county during the winter you're not going to get to on a vehicle. So while Mr. Wheelock is correct, the probability of us getting a call about an intoxicated snowmobiler and being able to capture that subject is rather remote. We have a better opportunity using road patrol for that function. The visibility, the deterrence factor of those sleds is huge for snowmobilers. They went years without seeing sleds on trails, and we kept getting complaint after complaint after complaint about reckless behavior on the trails. And snowmobilers know there are no patrols out there. So between us and the DNR, which is an unlikely event, patrolling trails, it's an unchecked arena. So now that we're out there, we have 1,800 contacts last year. People give us positive responses that this is an important program, and it is not a costly program. So, yes, I understand. I was part of a discussion with Mr. Wheelock and prior administrator, Mr. Aloya, and we cut this program. The Sheriff's Department agreed to disengage themselves from this program because we wanted to keep the impact off of the essential function, which we believed at that time was road patrol. We still believe it today, but for a very few dollars, relatively speaking, a very few dollars, we can have an unchecked arena being checked. And there are we have accident investigation obligations for snowmobiles. We can't get there in Dodge Chargers. So there are occasions that we have to use sleds to go to those accident scenes and investigate those accidents. Rescue opportunities. We have an airboat. We also have snowmobiles that can be used for ice rescue or missing endangered people that are out in the snow. All of these things require us to have a lot of different apparatus. So the Sheriff's Department's law enforcement function is not just road patrol. It's our bread and butter, and we need to have money for that, but the whole field of operations needs to be attended to. Yes, sir.
Dr. Johnson. Or I'm sorry, Dr. Latham.
Yeah, thank you.
Then Dr. Johnson.
Okay, are you able to come close to the number of dollars it takes? And I see the 8,000 here, but there's officers and their time and stuff. When you say very few dollars, I'm not trying to pin you down to the nickel, but about what does it cost to run that program, do you think?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm assuming Mr. Rock could give that shortly.
Part-time officers, right?
They're all seasonal officers. They're not part-time, they're seasonal officers that we use.
You know, I'm just wondering, is it 100,000,
No,
50,000, 30?
no. I think it's probably 20,000.
Piece of the program, yeah, go ahead.
In 2014, the total budget was $16,463. We spent only 81% of that, so it's a very small part of your overall
And you had
budget.
how many contacts, you said, last year?
1,800, and 3 drunk driving arrests. And last year was a heavy winter. We had snow from November 15th on.
I disagree respectfully, but I do support this. I think it's, for some of the reasons you mentioned, not just snowmobile patrols, but for rescues. You can't, it's hard to put a dollar value on that kind of ability to get something out there quickly. And to me, this is a way to get rid of the 99 sled and at least getting something newer with a lot of out-of-pocket expense for us. So, and given what you just said, that they are part-time and seasonal, I think the impact is minimal. I mean, I agree we need more road patrol officers, but I think there's a lot of families that would say they welcome having the officers out there to slow people up and everything else. So I support this.
Carol first, and then Dan.
I agree with Dr. Johnson that if you have boats, correct? Correct?
That's correct.
And so in the summertime, you patrol the bays because that's where a lot of the activity is. We're not always in where cars go. I mean, there's a lot of activity out and about where people in Grand Traverse County are generally very outdoor people, I think. And if you're going to patrol the waterways in the summertime, why wouldn't you patrol, I don't know what you call them, the snowways in the wintertime? So I think that you need to have the proper equipment to do that.
That tends to be our position. We do a lot of work on the waterways without question because that is our main draw to the area. But Grand Traverse County has a lot of connecting trailways in and out of this county, and they are heavily traveled.
I'm going to support, I hate to go against you, but I'm going to support this because for me, health, safety, welfare is the core of our activities. And when I look at spending $2,200 or $22,000, you have 1,800 contacts, it's about, it's $1 a contact, pretty good deal. I'm going to support it.
Ron?
Is this a grant that would be available next year, or is this just a one-time forever?
It's been a grant that we've been receiving for quite a few years, and I would anticipate we would continue to get.
So this year being a short winter compared to last winter, and we're just about at the end of it, being optimistic.
You are optimistic.
Okay. You put that salt away now, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. One other thing, there are very few things that we get to do from a law enforcement perspective where someone says, that's pretty cool, thank you for being out here. People don't stop road patrolmen and say, hey, thanks a lot for, give me a ticket. Snowmobile patrol, the canine, there are a few things that we do that are those positive things that we can engage the community with, and there are very positive responses that we get from people who are sharing those trails, and I think it's, for the bang for the buck, it's a great deal.
The only other piece that I would mention, I believe the DNR only recognizes like 14 miles of approved trail in all of Grand Traverse County.
Really?
That's approved trails.
Approved
Well,
trail.
It's snowmobile approved activities. The grant is for approved activities. It doesn't, I don't think it's specific to trails. The ORV trails, that grant is specific to ORV trails.
Right, and there's 14
And
miles.
there's
of
very
Union
few of that.
And
Okay. Christine?
do we have a motion yet?
I was gonna call on myself first before, that's what we were discussing. I was just waiting for everybody
may
else to
talk
finish. My friends love it when I say this, I'm gonna need a little more information. I like facts, and I am reading through this, and the Sheriff's Department is requesting either option A or option B. So I need a little bit more information on where our motion would go, either for A or B. And, but before we even discuss the details of this, just a couple questions to back up for those that aren't familiar with the program, and that would be myself included. You said you have 2 newer sleds, 2 older sleds. You typically run 3 on. They're seasonal part-time officers. So in the winter, or in the summer, obviously, the sleds are parked, and those officers do not work for the Sheriff's Department in the summer?
Well, some do and some don't. Those are also our Marine deputies.
Okay. If we were to, say, not have this program, would those officers still be brought on?
As Marine deputies? Most certainly.
Okay, but they wouldn't have work in the winter then?
That's correct.
They're probably snowmobile specific or maybe have some special training?
These are not certified officers or seasonal, so these officers are people that we have backgrounded, have worked with through training, so we use them in different functions through the year.
Okay. Next thing is, obviously, there's no such thing as free money. Along with a purchase, even if the purchase is covered 100%, you have things like maintenance,
Yes.
storage, insurance, that sort of thing. So when Dean gave the fund bail, or the budget line item for the snowmobiles, that would include expenses that are associated with
That is
having the
correct.
vehicles themselves. And now down to the game show part of it. Option A or option B, what do you like?
We need to go with option A. The option A, option B is a little confusing. I apologize for that. We did not necessarily know because of the way the bids came in. We didn't know that a brand-new sled would cost more than $10,000. There was also a question as to whether or not we could trade a sled in for a decrease in the price, so that got in the way of that. But long and short of it is, we would like to purchase the 2015 Skidoo from Lakeside Motorsports because it is the most similar to the 2 sleds that we have.
So that is the lowest of the price on side A? I'm assuming that is A.
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, there is a local preference for the vendor for Traverse Bay Marine. That sled is not available, as we understand it.
Okay.
And they do not know that they can get that sled.
Okay, so we're looking at a preference for A, the lowest item. And I'll just say from my own view, having lived on the water many years up here and knowing what you guys do, or just most recently, we saw a gentleman unfortunately drive into Boardman Lake. I know the advantage to our Sheriff's Department having these snowmobiles, and I've seen them in action and what they can do. So because of that and it being a public safety issue, I will make a motion to allow the purchase of option A, Lakeside Motorsports snowmobile in the amount of $10,650 to be purchased in conjunction with the MDNR grant.
I'll support. Y'all changed my mind.
Hey,
Is there any discussion? Any discussion on the motion at all? Sonny?
Only that I think we're doing it backwards. I think we need to accept the operational grant, which is on the back side of the page that you're reading, before we approve the SLED, because if you don't accept the operational grant, you don't have the money to operate the program anyway.
The operational grant would be a second motion, am I correct?
I know that, but what I'm saying is if you're not going to accept the operational grant, you don't want to buy the SLED.
Okay,
I would-
I will withdraw my motion.
You know, I don't care, as long as we have the discussion and everybody's understanding that you need to approve the operational grant also, if you're going to buy the SLED, we can vote in whichever order. It's just that you need the operational money before you buy the SLED.
I apologize, I was going backwards. Ron?
And
So
can
we have a motion on the floor in the second, that's fine. We can vote on that one, and then we'll have to handle the other one as a second
Okay.
motion.
Okay, then I
Let's do
won't
that.
withdraw.
That's what I was going to ask, is if we can
Just trust each other.
accept the operational money and not have the sled, so we still have money to fund officers on the old sleds,
We can, it's two separate motions.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct assessment on it. I think the assumption was it was used in conjunction with,
Right,
but you are absolutely correct on that. Is there any other discussion on the first motion then? And I find out now we do not need a roll call vote for a purchase from our prosecutor, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And you actually adopted board rules at the the organizational meeting to eliminate that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that would be 5-2.
We usually, when there's a nay, we do a roll call vote then.
But we don't have to.
Yeah, but Bob says we
I thought
don't
it was-
have, we don't have to do that.
I thought
as
it was
long as-
if it was questionable as to whether you had a motion pass or not? Okay.
The board rule is that any commissioner may ask for a roll call vote.
It's in the board.
My only question would be, I would ask that the minutes note that I voted opposed.
And Commissioner Klaus did as well. Okay, we will move on to the second page, which I guess could have been the first. I was looking at it as the first. Perhaps this is page 1, the operational grant.
I make a motion, we approve the snowmobile enforcement grant as presented.
Support?
Okay, moved by Johnson, support by Crawford. Discussion. Dr. Lathrop.
No, I just support it.
Oh, okay. Is there any discussion?
Same discussion we just had.
Okay, ditto for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
And that was Wheelock?
That was opposed, Wheelock. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I believe we have completed the consent calendar. We will move on to department action items. First one would be under Human Resources, the COAM sergeants.
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. This is the Command Officers Association of Michigan, the Sergeants Group, which contains sergeants from both the road and the jail, and approximately 15 employees, and they have agreed to benefit reductions with a health insurance plan change, maximum of 5 personal days to be cashed out, and retiree health care ending as of the first of this year. For new hires, excuse me. Yep. There is a 1.5% wage increase the first 2 years and tied to the CPI in year 3, which is consistent with all of the other Sheriff's Department contracts that have already been approved, as well as a long-term disability, physical maintenance, and a shift differential.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the Teamsters Sergeant, or the COAM contract for the sergeants.
Immediate effect.
This is not Teamsters Command. The packet, or the document that we received says Teamsters Command.
That's the second one.
It's the second one.
That's the addition to the
That
agenda.
was the addition.
Okay, sorry.
And they're very similar because they're very similar.
Well, yeah,
Because they're very
I hadn't
similar.
heard the Teamsters Command approved, so.
There's only 11 union, yeah, they're very, yep.
All right, so I would move to approve the sergeants first,
Immediate approval.
With immediate effect, please.
for immediate effect, yes.
I will support that. Moved by Wheelock, supported by Kropa. Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Sure.
What is the physical maintenance program? Because I've seen that in several documents.
I'll let Nate explain. This
I
is,
think I
this
have an idea, but
is his,
only in the
this is
Yeah,
his
it's
baby.
I mean, if it's what it is, it makes sense.
It's
Dr.
Nate's
Lathrop will
thing.
start
They
doing
need
the
to be
push-ups
able to
for
run fast and
I
jump
think
high.
rather than have him explain it, he ought to demonstrate it.
Yeah. Stand up and come here, and I'll... The physical maintenance program is something that we have worked very hard and long, years and years, to get it mandatory that our officers take a age, gender, norm test every year, and that it goes to show them that they are ready for duty, basically. It's a test that consists of push-ups, sit-ups, and a run, or a bike option, and until 2 years ago, all officers in the Sheriff's Department had to do that, and they have to pass it annually. If they don't pass it, they have a year to pass it. If they cannot pass it then, they are suspended. If they can't pass it after another year, they are discharged. And the reason for that is because of the physical requirements of a law enforcement officer and negligent retention issues. If they can't physically do the job, then they are a liability to themselves, or the community, and to you, quite frankly.
Thank you.
The deputies unit presently does not have this requirement. The road patrol deputies, everybody else does. 2 years ago, their legal counsel challenged the test, and rather than going through a lengthy legal battle with them specific to the test, we said, okay, we'll go about it via other means. But that is presently a contract issue with them right now, and we meet with them next week.
But we should also note that we supported in this contract a compensation for all of the officers if they successfully complete the program.
Which is beneficial. I mean, it helps alleviate some of the concerns they usually have about making someone do it, you know.
Certainly. I think it incentivizes the right behavior.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you know, you talk about nationally, cops are in the worst shape of any profession, which is unbelievable to me. But it does incentivize right behavior, and I definitely appreciate the board's willingness to take that to a new level.
Well, it's not that beneficial because you gave me the numbers of push-ups I'd have to do to keep up with the sheriff. So I did that and blew out my right shoulder. Now I'm in rehab over it. So
That's a work
So I don't know.
Well, you were supposed to call me, and we were supposed to talk about a program. Jump right into it.
All right.
Clearly, the county
I'll be
board
back.
does not have the same program.
No.
Obvious. Are there any other questions for Nate or Jen, for anyone? Okay, this is for immediate approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. She'll be back. Administration, the administrator's report.
The administrative report was included for your perusal, sent around to all the townships and a number of others. There's one correction. I think you got a new one. The 90 days that I cited in there for the central records agreement is actually a 120-day notice requirement, so it doesn't have a lot of effect, but city manager and I spoke about it, and he brought it to my attention that it was 120 days. He said, don't hold me to 90 days. I need all the time I can get. No, he didn't say that. We are working on it, though. And there's a number of other things. If you have any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question on the, where do you stand on the meeting with the township supervisors regarding the community police officers?
We're about that close to having the numbers finalized. We've been working on those for quite a while now, and once they're together, I have a letter drafted to go out to the township supervisors to, and then we'll probably do it via doodle poll, try and get a date where we can all sit in the same room. I think that we'll come to an agreement, but I'm not positive of that, but I think that what we put together is a reasonable approach to all this. And I'm assuming, not without the board, without breaking into a long discussion, one of the things that I mentioned in that letter is that the former board made it very clear that they wanted to continue the relationship where the townships pay the direct costs and the county pays the cost of the fuel and the cars and bulletproof vests and everything else. And I didn't think that this board would want to change that they wanted to continue that policy. So I don't think I'm inaccurate in saying that, but we're going to talk about those issues. We're going to show them what we believe the complete costs are and what the direct costs are and what they have been for the last several years versus what they paid, and then we'll have a discussion. That's where we're going.
Okay, thank you.
Are you inviting any of the commissioners to that meeting?
I don't have any problem with commissioners being there. I think this is something that, before the whole board gets there, I don't want 4 commissioners there.
Yeah, personally, I don't support the 5% increase, so, just so you know where I stand on it. I know the budget was built upon that, but I don't support it right now. The townships that I've talked to in the villages are not happy with that and it's a burden on them right now, so.
Dave, are you including, the village managers that are?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We keep
Ms.
saying
Foster,
township
yeah.
supervisors, I just don't want to forget the
And Ms.
village
Foster,
managers.
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And all townships will be invited,
Yeah.
even though they are not currently contracted.
Correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Lisa Leedy as well from White Lake, not just Mitch, okay. And then the numbers that you're gathering, this is to come up with actual cost?
Well, this is they want to know what a 3-year deputy costs.
Because that's the language in the contract. I
Correct.
believe in all 3 of the contracts.
Well, they're all different.
I know.
There are several that are the same, and there are a few outliers that, some of them go way back and are, haven't been updated in many years, over 20 years. But for the most part, they're fairly consistent in that they ask for the townships to pay the direct cost of the officers. As you may or may not know, the county board, at the request of several township supervisors, froze the rate that the townships would pay for 3 years. And that meant that the escalating inflationary costs were assumed by the county, and they weren't paying direct costs anymore. They were only paying what they, a percentage of increase over what they did last year. Was the first time that happened was not in this past budget process, but the previous budget process for 2014, where we asked them to pay 2.5% more. They didn't like that either. So, if the board, after we've talked, if they don't have something that they agree to, and they want to come to the Board of Commissioners and ask you to let them, to freeze it forever or whatever they want to do, that's fine with me. But, and I'll do whatever the board wants to do.
And when was it
But I
froze?
think we ought to, I think it was 2011, 12, and 13.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So then in 14, it went up 2.5%.
Yeah.
And then the budget that was passed is a 5% increase for 15. Okay. And coming to this meeting, I would hope that one of the goals is to have 1 contract rather than 3.
That would also be a goal, yes.
Okay, so that's one of the
Try and
things
get-
that trying to put together a contract that then the details could be worked out between the 2 groups, but at least we have something to start with.
Yeah, and what we're going to strive for is a contract that is consistent across all the townships. To the extent possible, I know that there are some townships, for example, Garfield wants a detective and they want a command officer. Those will have to be, done separately, or there'll have to be a difference there. But the rest of them can be structured in the same way so that it's simple for our staff, because we don't have a lot of extra staff laying around to do, to count pennies. So we'd like to do it on averages and, come up with that number, and then everybody gets the same number at the same time, and that's kind of the approach that we'd like to take, and exclude some fairly significant costs that, direct costs that townships used to pay, but, the legacy costs, for example, of our officers, we're talking about excluding that. I mean, how do you allocate that cost to township officers. It doesn't make sense to me that we would do that. There's a couple other things that we were talking about not assessing because it's just too hard to allocate it. So just take it out of the formula so we can have one formula that works for everything, and we look at the budget, we go, this is what these officers cost, whether it's a third-year officer or the average of all our officers, and then we use that as the direct cost number, and that's what we'll target.
Do we want to invite the supervisors if they would
I
like
will
to?
in just a moment when we're done with commissioner discussion.
All right.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Just a brief history lesson, a little bit, maybe. These positions started as COPS grants that were federal money. Federal government paid for these officers for, well, it was, the first year, I think they paid 100%. The second year was two-thirds, then one-third, and then it was gone. And then the
75,
township.
75, 50, 25.
Was it 4 years?
75, 50, 25, 0.
Okay, so anyway, over a period of time, these officers of the townships were paid more. A key piece in that contract that I think one of the problems that we really have significantly is the terminology of a 3-year officer. The tenure of our officers that are in these positions is currently much more than 3 years on the average. So the cost for us is higher, and just the idea that you approve tonight contracts for officers that give them a 1.5% increase in wages this year, plus 1.5% next year, and then in the third year it's tied to a CPI. If you don't make some provision in this contract to charge additional funding to the townships for those officers, you're going backwards.
Any other commissioners? Well, then I guess it's my turn. This doesn't come as a surprise to you that I don't support the current idea on the table with the CPOs. I think we're lucky to have help paying for them at all. I appreciate the idea of actual costs. I really do. And you're absolutely correct. How do you define legacy and attach that? You don't, because it's not the township's legacy, it's the county's. These are county sheriff's officers. They work for the county. They would work for the county whether the township paid for them or not, and they would create a legacy whether the county paid for them or not. So to assign that in a program that's mutually beneficial to both is difficult for me. I would hope that moving forward into the meeting with the supervisors that we would look at one contractor, as you said, we would have to have one exception for Garfield. I would like to see us not have this discussion every year. I would like the townships to be able to do their budgets. We all hope to do 1, 3, 5-year budgets. I'd like to be able to have them know that we're not going to change the costs on them. And I also would like to see us come up with a reasonable rate that we think is fair for this program, understanding that it's not a true cost program, but it's a beneficial program and a compromise program. So I think if we come up with a wage that's fair and it's not necessarily encompassing every direct cost, to me, that's better than nothing, because that's what we're going to get if they pull these. And I don't think they're kidding about that at all. The Sheriff's Department is a big part of our budget. If the townships pull out, we don't have any extra money, and I would hate to see those guys lose their jobs. And I don't think the townships want those guys to lose their jobs. So this is, to me, a critical issue. I hope to see the meeting come together soon, and I would like to see us come up with something, because I think we can easily avoid any sort of jobs lost or problems, just by coming up with some sort of compromise. But coming up with actual costs, I don't ever see that being the item. I don't think we're going to reach an agreement on that, and it's going to end up coming back to the board. So, is there anyone else? Christine?
I've been Dave, I've been a strong supporter of this program for a long time. I would agree that the 5%, and I did not vote for this last year, as you know. I did not vote or support the 5% increase. But I do think that the townships are willing to incur some increase, something that's reasonable. And that's what I hope to come out of this meeting, just so you know. I truly believe that the townships see the value in this program, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for their participation in this program. because we would not have the officers on the roads that we have without them. So a reasonable increase, I think, should be on the table, but I think 5%'s too high. And I hate to,
For them to pay.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not for us, though.
They're county sheriffs.
That's what you're saying.
Basically, that is what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay.
Any other commissioners? Okay, did anyone from the audience want to speak on this? How did I know?
You kind of knew that.
Supervisor Lyle. That's Lyle with an I, by the way, for everybody watching at home.
Lyle, East Bay Township Supervisor. Again, I'll say I think the program's excellent. I just can't believe that we keep running into this black wall. And when you look at it, look at what they're doing, if you eliminated the CPO program, all these calls that they're doing in all the townships are still going to happen, only you're going to pay for the whole thing. I believe there ought to be something, and I guess I can say it right out. I worked on the contract today, what my thought is, and I took the new contract. There wasn't much change that I made into it. A couple little things, but funding, we need to come up with what a price is for this next year, and then build into it the same clause that you have in your tax notice. It go up 5%, the lesser of 5% or the CPI annually. That should settle it. And I can't speak for the other townships, but I sure don't have a problem with that. And that way we're not every year going over the same thing. Still realizing all these calls that are done are going to be done other than a couple different line items. The thing we're running into in East Bay now, there are no police officers in school. So my CPOs are spending all their time in the schools. Another side note to it. But I guess I'll leave it for that until we have our meeting, but that's just some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jay?
I just, like I say, I like to look at the data. We deal with the facts. I think it's much easier for all of us. Take into account everything that's said. We're looking forward to this meeting, all of us, so we can actually sit down and do that. We do support the program. I think it's a great program. I think we ought to understand what we want to pay for the safety of our citizens and what it costs us to have a community that we are proud to live in and that we don't have a lot of crime and a lot of problems. And there is a cost to that for all of us. The cost comes from our taxpayers. It doesn't come from us individually. It comes, other than we are taxpayers. And we just ought to look at that too and say, what is that we want? We look to Nate, Sheriff Bensley to help us with that, because if we have more statistics, more information, we'll understand better what we're doing. So thank you. Appreciate the time. Look forward to the meeting.
Anyone else? Okay.
Madam-
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We were sitting here in October, listening to the commissioners battle over the budget, and there was no excess money then. I didn't see anybody roll any in while we were these last few months. There's going to be a battle of the budget coming up again. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, something's going to have to give, and someone's going to have to give. I don't know where, but the day of reckoning is going to be coming, and here we sit giving raises, increase in, and I don't know what the raises were. I mean, there was some concessions in the insurance, but, and then we just had a meeting with the unfunded budget, and I'm just cautious about any thing that we do to add to the pain for the county as a whole. I mean, it's something we got to think about as we're graciously wanting officers and putting demands on townships and for payment. It's all going to come around.
That is my concern.
Yes.
If they pull out, all of a sudden, we've got a lot of sheriff's deputies to pay for.
Looking at the information that we've put together so far, and hopefully we'll get the rest of it together in the next day or so, and get this out, I think when we meet with the townships, we can't be that far apart. I mean, I think that the numbers are close enough that, we're going to be able to come to an agreement, and I think reasonable, I have good relationships with all of them. Maybe not in this issue, but I have good relationships with all of them. And I think we can come to some kind of agreement that's acceptable to all of us. So I think we can, not have to review this every year.
I hope so. I think it makes it easier for us with our budget and them for their, everybody involved.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I think a lot of them were just upset at the process too, not as much as the 5%, but how it got to that. So I think get that relationship going again and help at least, like a chairwoman says, not go every year at this thing and get it addressed for a couple of years at a time, so.
Well, and you never hate to have it hanging over your head that you could lose part of your funding for your largest budget, part of our budget, which is the sheriff's department.
I think like Dr. Bob said, they just wanted to have their say, not have it imposed on them. Ask, what do you think? We're thinking about this. Can we discuss it rather than say this is just the way it is?
I think it's going to be a beneficial meeting.
I think a discussion will be very helpful.
Okay, anyone else? We are done with that. Dave, was there anything else you needed to add to your report? Okay. On to unfinished business. A, board rule revisions and corrections, and this is for immediate effect, and we'll turn it over to the boss over here, Mr. Cooney.
These are essentially housekeeping changes, most of which came from administration. And so unless there are specific questions about any of the changes, I can explain those for you. But otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve the board rules as amended.
Yeah, I did have one question for you, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll to find it.
You have the motion first.
The motion first.
Madam
I'll
Chairman,
motion, oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I would make a motion that we accept the board rules as amended.
Support.
Okay, motion by Crawford, support by Wheelock.
No discussion.
I'm still scrolling. That's why I said, give me a second to stop scrolling, and then I will. This came up last year during the annual Record Eagle, the gift that keeps on giving, you need to cut your pay commissioners article. I went and talked to Dave to find out if it was even legal, and I see that we have something under compensation that has addressed this, which hopefully we can then pass on to the Record Eagle and wrap it up in a lovely ribboned gift to them this fall when it comes up again. The annual salaries of board members shall be fixed by the board on or before October 31st each year and shall not be diminished during the term for which such members shall have been elected or appointed, but may be increased by the board during their term of office. And I see that that was crossed out.
Yeah.
And how does this affect us for the article we'll be in a few
Well,
months?
that is the rule that affects elected officers for the county other than the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
There's a specific statute that applies to you, and you can increase, you can decrease your salary during your term of office, but it has to become effective at the beginning of the new term. So that's the
You can't change the office in your term.
Right, like last year, you guys could they have changed because it would
Before
have
the
been
end of the
effective
year.
January 1st? Okay. Okay, so this is not going to affect us when we are questioned about that. We aren't changing any rules regarding how commissioners can change commissioner
No,
salary.
this is consistent with, if you're asking about the way it was reported in the Record Eagle.
Oh, no.
This is
Yeah.
consistent with what we interpreted the law to be at that time.
Okay.
So-
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So again, I viewed it as a housekeeping change because there's a citation to a statute that doesn't apply to commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wheelock, then Commissioner Johnson.
Bob, and it's just a little technical thing. On page 18, under rules of order, it states that the Ways and Means, Public Health and Safety, and Resource Management Committees shall begin at 6 p.m., effective date April 1st of 2011. April 1st, 2011 is when we set the meeting times at 7 p.m. We changed the times to 6 p.m., I believe in 2014. I don't know what the date was. I called Chris this afternoon because I did catch that. I made myself a little note, but we need to make that change because that effective date of April 1st, 2011 is incorrect as to when we move the meetings to 6 o'clock.
I would suggest you, take out the parenthetical.
So just take out the effective date?
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. Because it's got the effective date in there and that date is incorrect, we're better off to strike that date altogether and just have it
Probably not
read
necessary.
that the meeting shall begin at 6 p.m.
So you're asking to amend the motion to include that change?
Yes, please. If the motioner would approve that.
Was there a motion?
Yes, I would approve that.
Okay. Now, because I seconded it, I can do that.
We're good with that?
I'm fine.
Dr. Bob?
I want to go back to compensation, so I'll make sure I understand it. So if we decided to change any of our benefits or compensation, we can't do it
During this term
during
of
this
office.
term. So we would have to do it affecting the next commissioners.
That benefits are different,
Okay.
okay? Those are treated separately. The statutory requirements don't apply to benefits. And they don't apply to structured changes in salary. So if you would normally get a 1.5% increase, that could be, that would not violate the statute because that increase would occur before the beginning of your next term. But other than that, you can increase or decrease your salaries during your term of office, but it only becomes effective at the beginning of the next term.
And I see,
The current salary was set in 2001, and it hasn't been changed since.
pretty bad. Standing committees, I see the audit committee was removed, and that means that at some point we choose not to have the audit committee.
That was not removed. The audit committee was not removed because we still have an audit committee.
We do.
Right.
But it's not a committee of the whole, and that list is...
That's committee of the whole.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are the committees of the whole. And so it didn't make sense to list audit committee under there. But you can see that in 13.2, non-statutory audit committee is described.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay, we have motion and support. Is there any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks, Bob. Okay. See if I can get back to the right thing here. On to unfinished business B, soil erosion inspectors. It was tabled on December 23rd of 14. I was the commissioner that brought this back on the table because I have had several constituents at different meetings say, what you gonna do about soil erosion? So I think we were provided with some background in here. I know for a fact that all of us were at the meetings because I sat with all of you, so I think we're not needing a large history background on this. Ultimately, because we do have a majority of different commissioners on here, a majority amount, one of my goals as a commissioner is to effectively communicate very clearly with our staff. And so that requires letting our staff know if we do agree with the decision, because it was tabled, so it's not an item, but as I understand, Bruce Ramoy has gone on and moved forward with an RFP and looking into some of the processes that were discussed by the previous board. So with that, I will open it up for discussion.
Madam Chair, I would move to direct staff to investigate ways of reducing the county's cost of soil erosion inspections and enforcement, including the possibility of outsourcing the function, and provide the results of the analysis to the board in early 2015.
I will second that motion for discussion. And Commissioner Lathrop.
Yeah, I talked with a guy named Bert Gale, who runs
For
a
AGS.
company called AGS. And I was impressed with him. He, I think somewhere between 20 and 40 municipalities in the state. His company manages soil erosion and building and electrical and a lot of different things. And one of the things he felt that, made his option viable was that he was very efficient in the way that he managed. For instance, his building inspectors are also comprehensively trained soil erosion inspectors. So when they show up on the site, they can do both. And so you save some money there. And I'm hoping that if this passes, Dave, that you contact him. He's quite a good resource. It might be one of the ways that you look at analyzing whether or not this is a viable alternative. I was impressed with him, and just for what it's worth. This isn't just about soil erosion. It really isn't. It's really about, we've got a $40 million unpaid liability. We're going to have to come up with $6 or $7 million every year now for a bunch of time to pay this thing off. Unless we borrow the money, I don't want to do that. I think it's like using a credit card to borrow on a credit card. Everyone has their opinions on that. I've got another information. I can pass this out today. That it's not soil erosion, but I'm trying to make a point here. The Department of the Public Health in the 4 years before 2007, in inspecting septic fields, they made $259,000 in inspection fees. That was for 4 years before 2007. For 7 years after 2007, they grossed $166,000 in inspection fees. So that means that the number of inspections almost dropped in half, and yet it looks like we have the same number of employees that are inspecting septic tanks. So that's the same kind of thing I'm looking at when I look at soil erosion. It's not, I think, peculiar to them, but when things grow in the summer and shrink in the winter, we should do the same. And we should also, another thing that why I want to do this, I think is important, is that the government, this county government, has a monopoly on providing services for our citizens. And our citizens deserve to get a look at least, through us. Can we do it better? Can we do it cheaper? Can we do it more efficiently? And there's no harm in looking. So I think this is a good exercise for us. We should do it, and we should do it, and I'm hoping this board will do it a lot more in a lot other areas, because we have to.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
As much as I like Nick, general fund dollars are supplementing soil erosion inspections. And quite honestly, I don't think my general fund dollars should be supplementing the soil erosion inspections. I don't view soil erosion any different than I view any other department, as Dr. Lathrop just said. I want to leave no stone unturned, and that's where I'm going to go when we get to my results-based governing discussion. I want to look at everything, and I don't think we should exempt soil erosion. I don't think we should exempt the swimming program. I don't think we should exempt the health department septic tank inspections. I don't think we should exempt the sheriff's department. I think we need to look at absolutely everything that we do and how we do it, and that's why I made the motion.
Okay. Commissioner Crawford, then Commissioner Johnson.
I would like to sort of echo what Commissioner Lathrop said, that it's not, I think people are looking at it as we're picking on the soil erosion department. They happen to be first. They're first of many. I would like to see us do a similar thing with many of the departments, all of them. Ask them to find efficiencies, see what you can do. We don't know these departments, so we are not going to go in and micromanage and say, oh, you can do without that person and that person. But I would expect the department directors to be able to take a good hard look at their own departments and say, yes, how can we do this more efficiently? How can we provide better service at a lower cost, more efficiently? Because the taxpayers are who we're supposed to be serving, and the taxpayers want good value for their money. And like I said, this is just the first. So it's not picking on soil erosion in particular. It just, for some reason, it happened to come first. So it's, as you said, it's a good trial for this, to see how this will go for all of the departments.
Well, I felt we should deal with tabled things before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
And
absolutely.
That's why it was. Dr.
Yep.
Johnson, then Klaus.
Yeah, we were all elected and came in here with the idea that we've got big budget issues, but I really need to make sure we caution ourselves. And this privatization, I went down there to soil erosion today, and this simple act is wreaking havoc in that department. We've got people that are scared for their jobs down there that don't know what's going on. They're not sitting around eating bonbons because there's no inspections right now. There's a lot more that goes into it. I say, yes, we can look at what can we privatize, but we really, as a board, need to learn what do they do before we say we can do it cheaper some other way. So I think we really need to do our homework and our due diligence when we start jumping down this path. I mean, I know we have to get some money from somewhere, but I really want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Right now, I'm not convinced of that, so.
Commissioner Klaus.
Yeah, and right now with the soil erosion building department, with building starting on its upswing, that's the one thing we don't need is the inspection process slowing it down in the field or in the office. No more than looking at the health department come, say, June, we're going to make drastic changes there when the restaurants that all need to be inspected and have to keep their criteria up are being looked at or overlooked when we get the influx of people coming to enjoy our area with the restaurants not being looked after. So I just, we do need to put the departments on notice to, see what they can do to sharpen their pencils and shorten their budgets.
Okay, Wheelock and then Lathrop.
I think there's two separate issues, and I'm pleased to hear that the motion tonight is to direct staff to look at this issue. When we kind of did a little knee-jerk reaction here a couple months ago and voted to contract this service, I'm not sure that we had all the proper information, and I'm pretty sure we still don't have all the proper information to make that decision. I've said for years the only way that we can properly adjust our budget is to evaluate every service we provide, how much that particular service costs and how many people are served by it. And I think we failed to do that. But there's no one that knows the services that are being provided in our departments better than our departments do. I sat through a very lengthy budget session process in 2014 where we brought every single department in here and they talked about what their services were. And at the end of the day, commissioners couldn't identify one dime they wanted to cut out of the budget because they didn't think there was anything that you wanted to cut. The fact is, folks, we're going to have to make some cuts, and they're going to be tough decisions. And, but that being said, do not underestimate, number one, there is not a service that we provide, and we provide hundreds of services to the citizens of this community. There's not a single service that we provide that someone in this community that doesn't depend on. So when you talk about making cuts to the departments, you need to realize that citizens in our community are going to be affected. In regard to soil erosion, I have heard overwhelmingly from every contractor, every developer that I deal with, they love the way it's working right now. Don't screw with it. You know. Now, I've had opportunity to work in other communities where they have contract inspectors. I've been on more than one job site that the inspector walks in, he says, nope, that's not right. He turns around and walks out, and next Tuesday he comes back in and he charges you another $50 to go 4 feet farther into the project and say that, okay, now something else is wrong. I've seen contracted inspections absolutely not work. I'm not saying that they can't work, but I've certainly seen them not work. So what I caution you is when you contract the inspections, make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and that you're still going to get quality inspections every time and in a timely manner. We're going to see a growth spurt come spring of housing projects in this community that we haven't seen since probably 2008. Hands down, we're going to see more than we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years for sure. And the idea that we don't have a process in place to do those pre-evaluations and those plan reviews way before that shovel starts going in the ground, plan reviews are approved. And if we don't have the proper people in our soil erosion department right now doing that, we'll never be ready when spring comes. You know, and I have great faith in the people that we have in those departments, and they do a great job. But unlike every other department, you know, Nate and I have had the discussion tonight. You know, when we talk about making cuts to any department, we need to go to that department, ask them if they have places that they can identify that we can make changes, either in cutting their budget or raising revenue. You know, I've heard Nick said here a couple times over the last few months saying they would be willing to consider a fee increase. You talk about the fact that we're supplementing that inspection with general funds. Well, maybe we can talk about what's an acceptable fee increase. Let's diminish that amount of general fund contribution. But let's just not say that the only way we can fix this problem is to go out and contract for these inspections.
Dan, and then Bob.
I'm not saying that. I'm agreeing with Dr. Bob and all of you that this is a very serious matter. We do have to do our homework. We have to start somewhere. It doesn't hurt to look. And I want to bring out another point. It's only human nature. I myself, if I were the head of the health department and someone came up to me and says, hey, is there a way that you can maybe get yourself fired? Can we have someone else do your job for cheaper? I wouldn't say yes. So when you go to your director of a department and you say, look, we're going to make some cuts, it's going to be hard for he or she to come up with that. So that's the reason why. I remember one time 30 years ago I had optic neuritis. And for those of you who know what that is, that it's either caused by a viral infection or it's a beginning sign of MS. And of course I was very upset. I went to a specialist that I believed and trusted in. And he told me, nah, Dan, it's just viral. You don't have MS. You know what? I got a second opinion because it was so important. And I think we should do the same thing. Like when, let's take soil erosion out. Let's just take the building department inspection. If we're going to look at, for instance, having that outsourced, we ought to bring in, like we did MERS, somebody to talk to us about it. Give us options so that we know more. Looking at it isn't to say that we're going to do it. Looking at it isn't to say we're going to do it. We shouldn't be afraid to look. We're going to have to look. because we've got a lot of places to save money, and we've got a lot of money to have to save. So I agree with all of you, but we should look, we should also get a second opinion. It shouldn't be just what our staff tells us. We need some outside input. I think we're myopic. That doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, yeah, everything's on the table. I think what the last board did at the beginning of the year, the problem with that, in my opinion, was they went to the wrong people. And no offense, Mr. Benda, to the department heads, but I would go to the employees that do the work. They're gonna know where the efficiencies lie. I guarantee you go to some of these departments and they can tell you, if you change X, Y, and Z, you're gonna save this much. And, if you really got serious about doing it, you could do some meetings with some of the bigger departments, and I guarantee you get some efficiencies within the employees themselves. So I think that's, again, what I said before, is when we start down this road, we need to make sure that we talk to these employees and understand what they do, so that we do have a good idea of can it be done cheaper on the outside. And I don't necessarily think that department is ever gonna break even. I mean, it'd be nice to, and I agree with possibly raising the fees for the inspections too. So, but all that should be looked at, like at the same time, so.
On that note, I wonder if I could propose an amendment to the original motion. Am I allowed to do that? Okay.
Yes, you are.
I would like to amend the original motion to, where it says including the possibility of outsourcing the function, and including the possibility of raising the rates that they charge for the inspections, and working with Mr. Bott to find out how much does it cost to do the inspection and come closer. We might never cover the cost, but to come closer. If the builders are willing, they have said that they're possibly willing to accept a fee increase, I would like the motion to include that, to look at the possibility of fee increases as well.
We need to ask the motion maker.
First, I agree with you that the fees should have been reviewed last year. I was not happy, and the administrator knows I was not happy when I saw that there was no fee increase in soil erosion. Everybody's costs go up. I would prefer that be, well, I'm fine with that. I view that as part of the analysis that is going to come before us.
It wasn't specifically stated, so I thought it was specifically
That's
stated,
fine.
then
Yeah,
that would be better, but we wanted to do that as well.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
I want to look at everything. I want fee increases, outsourcing, whatever. Building codes, correct me if I'm wrong, is an enterprise fund. And quite honestly, I don't know why soil erosion isn't. And if we outsource, it makes it an enterprise fund. And general fund dollars are not going to go towards soil erosion. That being said, I do want a thorough analysis. I want to look at everything. And as far as I'm concerned, everything's on the table.
Can you will amend your motion?
I absolutely will amend my
I
motion
supported the
to
motion,
you.
so I will amend my second as well.
Okay.
Before I open up for public comment, I haven't spoken yet, nor do I think I've spoken publicly about soil erosion. So it may be everybody's guess. It's probably not going to be a difficult one. I believe in the free market, and it works. I've been in business 20 years because of the free market. My guys get paid a good wage. We charge our customers a fair price, and we provide a good service, or they don't come back the next year. It's real easy. The government has mandated services and things that aren't mandated. Everybody knows how I feel about non-mandated services competing with private business. I don't think it's a place of the government. But when we do, for instance, our Power Island Ferry, we brought in the people that we're competing with, and we decided on a fair market rate. What priced us right in there? It didn't make people want us more. It didn't make people want us less. It priced us right in there. And then we go to mandated services. A portion of soil erosion is the DEQ says that we need to provide a certain thing, and you're going to have to excuse my my ignorance on this. It's not like a court system. You can't go out and hire a subcontractor and get a private prosecutor and a private judge, and we can't do that, and those are mandated services. So part of soil erosion is. So where's the free market in that? Whose job is it to make sure that the employees are paid the right wage, that we're offering things at a fair market value, that it's the most efficient and best service, so that our employees come back year after year? Well, we don't have to, we're the government. That's where my problem is. I'd like to take non-mandated, partially mandated, and fully mandated services and treat them all the same. They should be treated no different than my business, Ron's business, Dan's business, or Sonny's business. We all own businesses and we all do this every day. So whether it's soil erosion or the swimming pool or a Power Island ferry or whatever, I just want to see us give our customers the best price. I don't know if it's outsourcing. Maybe that makes it an incredibly inefficient department. Efficiency doesn't always translate to cuts. It sometimes just translates to providing a better service, which in the long run is better for everybody anyways. So whatever we come up with soil erosion, we will listen to the recommendations that the staff is directed to, and we will look at it from, at least for myself, an entrepreneurial point of view. If we're not providing a good service, we better change it. What can we do? And that's where I feel about soil erosion, which is not my area of expertise. So I support the motion. I support the department head being able to make some suggestions. The only thing I've learned from talking to lots of people about this, and again, I'm not good at this, soil erosion used to be under the drain commissioner. And then it was removed from the drain commissioner and it was placed in building code. Don't ask me why I wasn't there. I know you were, Sonny. But maybe it's not the best fit for it. Maybe Bruce is in over his head with soil erosion. Maybe he's super busy with building code, and Pete Bruschi would be a better director and just handle soil erosion and the employee problems or calling back the customers or whatever our issues were with public relations there. Maybe it was done what they thought was the best thing when they removed it from soil erosion, but maybe it just needs to be restructured. That doesn't cost anybody their job. We're not asking for anything but a look at efficiency and happier employees. So I'm not asking to amend the motion, but to me, you told you what you thought the motion meant. To me, it means things like that. Don't forget to look at ideas of just segregating the way that our employees interact, or how, if the secretary does things for one or for the other. Again, I don't know, because Bob's right. I should go spend the day at soil erosion, and I haven't. However, tonight I'm going upstairs to work in 911 Central Dispatch for overnight, so I'm going to know a little bit more about them, and I encourage all of us to do that. So that's where I am. I will support the motion. Dan?
Well, one thing I want to bring up, soil erosion normally has to do with disturbing the earth within 500 feet of a body of water. However, our county soil erosion ordinance has what I will call about 400 or 500 mini county drains. These are drains that are drain condominiums and conglomerations of houses, subdivisions, and things like that. And the current soil erosion ordinance is if a person disturbs the earth within 500 feet of one of those drains, they have to get a permit. And I'm under the, and this is something we may have to ask you about, Bob, for a real opinion, is I was under the impression that these mini drains weren't enforceable anyway. So that it's not right for us to ask citizens to have a special permit just because they're within 500 feet of the mini drain versus 500 feet of water. So I think we need to clear that up, because we may be doing some soil erosion permits that we really shouldn't be doing or really aren't that important. So I think am I making sense to you, Bob?
Well, I asked last year that the board, actually, I think you did ask Bruce Ramey to go back and review the soil erosion ordinance and suggest changes to it, because we know it needs to be revised to eliminate the stormwater requirements of the ordinance. But you know, at that time, I told you, I don't think that I have the expertise because that document was drafted by environmental engineers. It wasn't, you know, it requires expertise beyond just legal knowledge. And so I believe the board did make that resolution, and so I think it's being looked at. I don't know where we're at with that process.
Well,
How's that going?
I'm just saying that we should, when we look at the answer for this and look at outsourcing it or manage it in some way, one big piece is, I mean, when I crunch the numbers on this, we could be doing as many as 200 or 300 permits that we really don't have to do. And that would drop the cost quite a bit. So we need to make that decision. We need to look at our current ordinance and decide, are we going to enforce these mini drains or no? And because that will affect the bottom line. Just FYI.
Yes. Dave, do you have any information maybe to catch?
Yeah, the ordinance needs to be amended.
Okay.
It's right now a stormwater and soil erosion ordinance, and it is absolutely not right
Okay.
for what we're doing, because we aren't doing stormwater enforcement anymore. The Drain Commissioner's doing a few townships that I know of. I don't know if he's gotten more since I last reviewed the issue, but we're out of the business. We used to have contracts with all the townships to enforce stormwater ordinances for them, and we've gotten out of that business, and the board made that decision a couple of years ago. So what we really need to do is have our ordinance say exactly what Part 91 says, which is what we're required to do, and not much more than that.
That's what I'm saying.
And if there are some things that we want to do that are more than that, then somebody needs to make that claim, and, you know, that decision needs to be made. But the ordinance definitely needs to be fixed. Bob says he doesn't have the expertise. I think Bruce Ramey has sent,
What you said, Dave, about the ordinance going beyond what's required by Part 91, if this board directed me to draft an ordinance that only required what's required by Part 91, that's easy. But 20-some years ago, there was a lot of input from the community, developers, environmentalists, about what should be required, because the law, Part 91 does allow this board to have stricter requirements than just what the state absolutely requires you to enforce. And there are stricter requirements in our ordinance. In fact, I think it's probably one of the strictest in the state. And that's why, you know, it's not a matter of just legal drafting. There was a lot of thought that went into that ordinance, and my suggestion last year was to get together the people that are affected by this, environmentalists, builders, you know, all the folks that are affected, and decide after 20-some years of this ordinance, what do we think is working, what isn't working, where do we think we should be.
well, stormwater piece has got
Let
to
me
be
finish
pulled
one
out.
question. What is the appropriate procedure for going about doing that? I mean, it clearly sounds like we need to cross our Ts and dot our Is here.
The motion was made and approved last year, but I don't know where we're at in the process.
We could ask.
Sorry. Oh, Commissioner Maxwell.
Dave, why don't you report to us at Ways and Means where Mr. Ramey is in the process?
Well, I can tell you,
Sort of
he
update.
agrees that the stormwater piece of that ordinance needs to be pulled out of that ordinance. How to do that, our legal counsel is telling me he doesn't feel he's qualified to do that. Our construction codes administrator isn't qualified to do that. We don't have anybody that's qualified to do that, is what we're hearing. So we need to either hire somebody that does have that expertise, and we could go through the whole process of ordinance review and bring in all the developers and construction folks and architects and anybody else who has all the stakeholders in the process, and
but we're going to have to draft an ordinance for their review and then take those comments and make those amendments and go back. And that's a process that's going to take some time. And we can do that, but there's no question that the ordinance we're not enforcing stormwater anymore, and that's still part of our ordinance. We need to get that out of there.
I'm going to bring Nick up because I think he has something on this specifically.
I'm finding this conversation fascinating. And I'm happy.
I was going to say, I hope it's a good fascinating. No. Bad car accident fascinating.
Listening to everyone's comments, and if everyone just sits down in a big room and talks about it, you're going to come to the crux of the problem. Right now, we have probably one of the most qualified people to address the stormwater issue, and that's Pete Bruschi. I mean, he knows more about stormwater than most anyone in the state and the soil erosion aspects. I agree with, I don't remember who was saying that, our fees haven't increased in 5 years. You go back, and I'm rambling right now as I'm just trying to remember who said what, but you think about the comment about, do we have areas that don't need soil erosion permits? They've been going through subdivisions and going lot by lot by lot by lot and saying, well, you don't need one here, you don't need one here, you don't need one here. And that's great. But then, because I have retention basins, if you're within 500 feet of that, you have to have a permit. And there's just no reason.
Why?
Because it's in the ordinance.
That's ridiculous.
That's correct. And it's in the ordinance. There's a tremendous amount of things. Ron will sit there, and he's going to sit there with a real stoic face over there. And there is so much stuff that we have to do that is so pointless. Not just in soil erosion, but in construction code. I mean, they want us to design homes for Category 2 hurricanes.
What?
We have to.
Do I hear you being interested in sitting on a committee? Draft a new stormwater.
Well, there's so many things, but if we could just, everyone sit down and think about this and work together, I think you can come up with something that's viable. I'm just inherently against having outside agencies come in and administer government-mandated issues. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Let me ask you this, if we had a more defined and rewritten ordinance, would that bring efficiency to the process of these departments? Would that help? Is it causing problems in the departments?
I don't know if it's causing problems in the department, but it's causing delays, it's causing costs. I have a house right now that I'm building for a young lady out in South Creek subdivision. Pancake flat lot. I have to have a soil erosion permit because I'm within 500 feet of a hill.
That's nuts.
Okay, so we've identified a
And I won't be, and she's going to move into her house in February. I'm going to have to give soil erosion a $500 bond so she can move into her house. Because we can't close out the permit.
Because it's winter.
Well, because it's winter, and
Can't finish
they
that.
say I have to
Right.
plant grass in Kalkaska sand. I mean, it's pointless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have public comment and then we can wrap it up, I think, with commissioners. Amy, do you want to speak before public?
I guess the comment that I have is that the big complication with this is our stormwater, or our soil erosion ordinance. Because the ordinance itself is, Bob's exactly right. It's not only the most restrictive in the state of Michigan, it's probably one of the most restrictive in the United States. It is very, very restrictive of what you can do and very detailed about what it has. There were some of us that weren't real happy when it was written a long time ago. But it's been passed, it's served our community, and we've had some glitches. But I guess the point that I really want to make is soil erosion is probably one of our smallest budget centers in a $45 million budget. And look at how much discussion we're having here tonight. You know, there isn't anything that we're going to discuss that isn't complicated. And it's more complicated than, you know, any of us like to admit that it is. And it's certainly more complicated than the public has any understanding of what it is. You know, it's real easy to sit here and say, yep, we'll just do that. But the issues are much more complicated than that.
I think it's time to tackle them. I think people are
Yeah,
tired
no
of sitting
problem.
home and watching it.
No problem with tackling them, we just have to understand, you know, where the problems are and that it's going to take time.
Yep. We'll do Chris and then Bob, and then Ron. And then we will open back up to the public.
I want to
and then we
make
will
it
vote.
extraordinarily clear that I want to look at outsourcing. I truly, I believe in an entrepreneurial form of government. And to do that, you have to inject competition wherever you can. It gets the best results, and I want to make it very clear that I want to look at outsourcing. I understand that that is not something that employees want to hear. I got it, but I want to look at it.
And Bob, and then Ron.
It sounds like we need to get some type of ad hoc committee together
That may be the next
to
motion.
get this, because that's a big, just from what I'm hearing now, that's a big part of the issue right now that's inefficient as heck and causing a lot of extra wasted dollars. So I would think, yeah, after we get done with this, we could
Okay.
address that.
Ron.
If we could do like Bob said he could do, is take the ordinance right back to Part 91, which is soil erosion, and start from there and build it back up, if that's what we choose to do. But start it right there. You probably see Nick doing backflips down the hall. And, you know, that would, I mean, if, I know Sonny's aware of it, but not as much as Nick and myself, but if you were to go through subdivisions and see holes in the ground and wonder, what's that hole all about? Who the heck put that hole there? That would be from your stormwater, or from your drain commission requirements back then, and from your soil erosion requirements today. It would make building subdivisions common sense again, rather than digging holes for water that's never going to show up.
And isn't that the repetitive theme we've heard here, is we want to make it more efficient,
And-
simpler, bring a better, you know, thing to our customer, and I can't think of a better way than at least addressing the idea of the ordinance causing some of these issues. Clearly, as Sonny said, there's more to the issue than that.
And-
But the ordinance rewrite may at least offer some sort of sign to our customers out there that we're serious about looking at providing a much better service here.
And take it back to Part 91, start from there. You won't have much for staff at that point.
You're going to have a bigger meeting room than this to hold that discussion in, though.
Well,
Because I can...
Happily, Nick has offered to run the meeting.
Because I can tell you, when you start talking about going back to just Part 91, you're going to see the Watershed Center and Seeds and a whole list of other people in here just going ballistic about the fact that they worked very hard 20 years ago to make sure that our county stormwater and soil erosion ordinance was very specific and protected all of the environmental things. And what you're going to hear, and we've done, you know, I've sat here long enough to have seen a multitude of surveys done, and people will repeatedly tell you their number one concern in our community is their environment.
The water.
But you ask them what they're willing to pay for, and it comes out about number 37. So, you know.
Well, the good news is I'm not afraid of the watershed or seeds or any of that, and I don't think any of us are.
I don't think we're prepared to go back to what Part 91 says specifically and say that's the extent of our restriction. I'm not prepared to do that myself. But that being said, somewhere between what Part 91 reads and what we have today is an ordinance that our community can support.
I think that's reasonable. Dan, if you can wait one moment, we're going to let the people that have been waiting
Oh, sure, you bet.
so patiently, our lovely supervisors, and Nick, we have one other one. Ladies first.
My name is TJ Andrews. You've been waiting to hear from me. I work for the Watershed Center.
Yes. I knew that. That's why I said it.
Represent. We at the Watershed Center act to protect and preserve and advocate for water quality in the Grand Traverse Bay and in our watershed. And I'm here because we have a very strong interest in this subject. We have a strong interest in seeing the county continue to administer and enforce Part 91 in the Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control Act program. And I did write these before this conversation, I swear, at least consistent with, if not exceeding, state law standards. The role that the Bay and water quality play in our region and in the economy, our local economy, we all know what that is. And this ordinance is there to protect it. This program, Grand Traverse County should have an ordinance that exceeds state standards. The main purpose of Part 91 and the Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control Department is to prevent soil erosion and to control pollution resulting from sedimentation, mostly during construction and earth changes. And here in our watershed in Grand Traverse Bay, sedimentation is the greatest, most significant threat to water quality. These two programs go together. And state law puts the obligation on the county to administer and enforce this program. There are aspects that can be outsourced, but the ultimate responsibility for Part 91 and preventing sedimentation pollution is going to remain with the county, no matter how the program looks. State law also limits how and what can be outsourced and what's going to have to stay here. Plan review may be outsourced, but permit approvals are going to have to take place at the county level. Inspections may be outsourced, but enforcement has to take place at the county level. The county has to have a certain level of comprehensive certification on staff to meet that obligation, although inspectors don't have to have the higher certifications. The program is going to have to remain transparent and accessible to the public, and it's going to remain regulated by the state. There may certainly be some savings to be had in this program if the county outsources it, but the costs are not going to be completely eliminated. And whatever the organizational chart for that department ultimately looks like, we at the Watershed Center strongly believe, and we think other people in this community will agree with us, and frankly, state law requires that the county has an obligation to make sure that the Soil Erosion Sedimentation Department is there to protect water quality. And that's why we're here today. So I appreciate your conversation. We would love to be, as I've expressed multiple times, part of an ad hoc committee to discuss ordinance in the county, but we want to keep the conversation about water quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Len?
Glenn Lyle, East Bay Charter Township Supervisor. I don't know a lot about soil erosion, but I did some asking because I end up hearing about it when somebody can't get something done or they can't get a permit. But I went back through 2014, there was 544 soil erosion permits issued in Grand Traverse County, and of that, 90 of them were in East Bay Township. I'm not gonna stand here and tell you my opinion what you should do or shouldn't do. The only thing I know is the public, the builders, everybody needs to know what they're going to do. And I assume it's gonna be continue to do what they're doing. But we're getting calls, well, what are we gonna do? You know, our zoning office does a good job of it. There was a name mentioned tonight, and I gotta truthfully say, I don't know that I've ever met the man, Pete Bruschi. But since I've been in office, anybody ever talked about this stuff, he's supposedly the person that knows everything. And I guess if everybody thinks that, apparently there must be some truth to it. So maybe that's where we need to start, is talk to him and find out how we're gonna do it. And whatever you end up doing, that's up to your decision, but remember, the townships are the ones that everybody comes knocking on the door when they can't get an answer somewhere else, so, thank you.
Jay?
I'm not going to talk about soil erosion. I'm going to talk about organization design. Dr. Dan, I think you had the right point there tonight. One thing I want to encourage you to say, it's good to talk to your people about what they do at all levels. I think that's most important. At the same time, give them guidance about what you expect the outcome of what they're doing to be. Don't say, just go look at this. Bring it back. I've done this nationwide with big organizations, way bigger than this county. Give them guidance. If it's look at outsourcing, give them guidance. If it's budget, give them guidance. If it's rules, give them guidance. So that then they come back with a comprehensive answer, whatever the answer is, whatever the department is. But just to say, go look at it, come back, then you'll start second guessing them. And that's all right to have questions, but give them guidance. It makes an organization design much stronger, much better, and works in the end for everybody. Doesn't matter whether it's soil erosion again, health department, sheriff's deputies. It's really important, and I've done a lot of this, and I've sat down with people and said, why do you need these people, Sonny? Show me why you need these people. Give me your facts. Give me your data. Give me what brings you to this point. You'll end up with a better answer. Just encourage you to do that in some manner, whatever you figure out to do, because the discussion you have tonight's a little bit about that. Everybody's offered some different input to things to do, but document that and use that in a manner that's constructive to the county and to what your end effort is, and that's to get that budget under control. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Well, we do have a motion in a second. Do we have any other discussion?
Just one more little point. Downstate, there's a bunch of drains. But here in Grand Traverse County, we only have like 13 or 16 or something like that. There's not a lot county drains. And the reason that's true is that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, community got together and made these rules that are more stringent and requires property owners to hold their stormwater on their own property as much as possible. So it doesn't go downhill, drain people's basements and stuff, ruin subdivisions. When that happens, then the community that's affected has to petition the drain commissioner to install a new county drain. We're talking about big pipes in the ground. The reason why we don't have all those big pipes in the ground like they've done downstate is that many years ago, we prophylactically and preventively started using this more sophisticated technique of holding our stormwater on our own property as long as we could. If we develop a new ordinance that goes right back to just 91, I'm telling you, 10, 15 years from now, the county drain commissioner is going to be building big new drains. So you're going to have to handle the water one way or the other, either on site or down the road with big new drains, where you tax people for that drain district. So just keep that in mind.
Ron?
Just an observation. This summer, when the parks were shut down from the E. coli in the bay, that didn't seem to cause near the stir that a plume in Acme, at Acme Creek caused. If I was going to have my granddaughter swimming in one of the two, it'd be in the plume, not in the E. coli water. It's just where people, where their hot button is, you know, let's not get caught up in someone's crisis of we're destroying the environment. We're pretty much all sand around here. We want to treat the sandy sites just like we treat the clay sites in the ordinance. That's just how I've seen it. So just Just an observation.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I will go ahead and call for a vote on the motion on the floor, recommending staff come back with.
Madam Chairperson, can I get a clarification that the motion, is it the resolution that is in your packet with the amendment to include the possibility of raising the fees?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just to finish it up, I'm going to make a motion to direct our board chair to meet with our county administrator to look at the idea of an ad hoc committee, to look at rewriting our ordinance and what details would be involved in that. And then come back to us and report on it at Ways and Means or the final board meeting if it takes time. And then come up with a recommendation for what commissioners you would like and what staff and what members of the public and that sort of thing.
I think that is a wonderful,
Oh, I support.
thank you.
Now you can discuss.
I'm absolutely more than happy to do that. When I hear Nick explain the soil that he's dealing with on a home in South Creek, I mean, what he's doing makes virtually no sense to me. And it absolutely has to be looked at. So I'm more than happy to do
I
that.
think it might help us with some of our problems. Nick, I'm sorry that I missed you. You're running it. You didn't hear that part of it? Okay, excellent. Thank you for the help, Madam Chairwoman, you know that. Is there any more discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Unfinished business C is the addition of the,
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the Teamsters Command contract for January 1, 2015 through December 31st, 2017. This contract basically mirrors the one that we passed earlier for the sergeants, which I believe only leaves us the deputies to sign the contract.
Correct. Support.
Congratulations.
okay. We have a motion from Wheelock, support by Crawford. Any discussion on it? No? Thanks for your work, John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under new business A, discussion regarding results-based government.
Yes. I'm bringing this up because I would like to hear from all of the members of the board how they view this. I envision, as I said earlier, a more entrepreneurial way of providing services to our community. And I want to bring competition into it whenever humanly possible, because I really do believe that competition, where it exists, the result is better results, better service. Those of you who have businesses know that when you compete, the customer wins, and that's what I envision for the county. And I'm going to bring facilities into this and bring up the problem that we have at the jail. Somehow I knew he would turn around. Okay. The way the facilities department works right now is they bump people. So when we eliminated a position for the mowing contract, what happened was the plumber that we had in the jail was bumped. So now we have someone who is not a licensed plumber in the jail. And we need a licensed plumber in the jail. At least that's what I hear from Captain Hall.
Either that or you need more buckets.
Let me tell you, I have been in the jail a number of times, and I would...
Maybe you might want to restate
and I want to clarify, never under arrest. But I've always been looking around. This makes no sense to me. Most municipalities, what they have for their facilities department is they have an HVAC technician, They have a licensed plumber, and they have a licensed electrician. And pretty much everything else is bid out, and competition comes into play. We would not be having the problems that we have in the jail right now because we no longer have a licensed plumber. The licensed plumber went to the DPW because of the bumping. So I want to look at everything. I want to look at facilities. I want to take a look at outsourcing some of the work that we do in the facilities department. The other problem that I have is in order to have this kind of entrepreneurial frame of mind, we have to know what things cost. We do not have an activity-based cost accountant. Dean looks at the costs that we have incurred, but if I asked him today, how much does it cost us to provide swimming for one of the members over at the pool, he couldn't tell me. Because nothing is, the costs just are spread out, they're unclear. So in any event, I want us to focus on what the services that we provide actually cost, and that will, in my view, allow us to prioritize. And I'm going to give you another example. I've said it before. We have the Rolls-Royce of 4-H programs. Well, maybe we should have the Chevy version of a 4-H program, which we can get for less money. It's still a good program. Many, many counties do that. But we do not know what the true cost of that service is. We give MSU Extension free rent. Am I making myself clear at all? And basically what I want to know is, as we move forward in this year, if I have the board's support in going down this road. It's not going to, it's going to probably cause some angst, but, so that's really my question.
I agree with you. I think we can't continue for a lot of reasons doing it like we used to do it. We have to reinvent some things and have competition, like you said. And I think we need some outside advice, again, a second opinion. There's a group called Government Finance Officers Association. It's a national government support firm that has long been partnered with Public Strategies Group, and they can advise us on some broad brushstrokes about how we evaluate these things and how we proceed to do them. And so either a group like that, or either that group or a group like that, come in and like MERS did, again, educate us about how to implement these entrepreneurial ideas. I think would be a good way, because I know I personally don't have the knowledge, and as much as I respect everybody on this board, I don't think all of us together have it. I think we need some outside advice. And I don't think it has to cost a lot of money either, at least to get us started.
Well, first, I mean, everything's on the table. I mean, I think we have to look at all options on trying to get that pension obligation. I think you hit it on the head there when we have to understand these departments too, to know what they're doing and see if we can find efficiencies. You know, I know that exercise was done last year again, I think was just a futile attempt to try to do that, but I think when we tackle this department by department, we need to make sure that we fully understand what the departments do and talk to the employees to see where they can make these efficiencies. Because I guarantee you, in a lot of these departments, they can probably work a lot more efficient if you went to them and said, what can we do different?
So, oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a question for Dave. And or Dean, but if we're looking at the county budget, because we're talking about little departments, what's the largest and I'm sure it's law enforcement and the court systems, what is that percentage? Is it 70%, 60?
65 to 70, is
Okay, so,
that right?
so we're talking
On
on,
that calculation before.
you know, short of going into the sheriff's department and doing what we're talking 35% of the county, we're gonna put under a microscope for their departments to try to help our budget. Which, just so we, so we know, we're trying to help repair a large deficit with, on the backs of few, but we can look at all these departments and see what we can do. Just, we don't need to get worse. You know, we can, by looking at the departments, we can hopefully make them a little bit better, but it's not gonna be the fix.
Sonny?
Well, I guess I remind you that basically 70% of our $45 million budget goes to the sheriff's department and our courts. You know, we spend 70% of the county's budget managing 3 to 5% of the population of this community. You know, just the way it is. You know, when you would talk about wanting to look at different ways of finance or how to get better reports about what individual things cost, I found it ironic when you talk about the government finance organization, Dan, knowing that next to the elevator downstairs is certificates of outstanding performance directed to Dean Bott in Grand Traverse County for the last 8 years in a row. You know, so to say that we're going to go out and ask those people to come and tell us how to do it differently, you know, they've recognized that we're doing it right as far as our financing goes. You know, Dean can talk to us about the types of financing and accounting that are required for governmental entities. We don't do line item budgets. You know, everything's done in budget centers. So to try to figure out exactly what a specific service costs is very, very difficult and sometimes impossible, especially when you are adding into those costs legacy costs of employees that retired 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but they're still deriving benefit. Those costs are in there, and they have to be an indirect cost. We have an IT department that's very, very expensive, but it's very, very important. You know, we have facilities that are aging, so there's issues with our buildings. There's just the list of things that go into the cost of providing every service we do is very long. So that's what makes it so complicated to try to figure out what does it cost us to put a guy in the jail to manage the drains when they shove the toilet paper down there or shove a towel down there and flush the toilet and it's running down on the lower levels, you know, but that's a problem. That's why we have shut-off valves all over the place. But the fact is, trying to pick out a specific service that we provide and what that specific service costs, and I would like to see it too, and we've talked about it for years. But the fact is, it's very complicated to try to get that because of the legacy costs and the indirect costs that are charged back to every budget center in our county.
Christine?
The awards, and Dean can correct me if I'm wrong, the awards that are downstairs are for financial reporting. They are not for budgeting. I would like to get an award for budgeting, and GFOA does give budgeting awards.
I've got 10 of them. I've got 10 of them.
Good.
I got to pay $350 a year. Well, you did 20 years ago.
To get one?
Yeah. Well, no, to be a part
You
of the
can buy those, can you?
But I used to be a reviewer for that program as well. I used to review 5 budgets a year from all over the country and submit and fill out a thing and
All
submit.
right. Well,
you know, and they got several others to do that. So.
I guess my point is, yeah, Sonny, we are looking at probably about 35% of the budget. But And I'm going to go back to the custodians. When we went to an outsource for custodial services, we eliminated those legacy costs. We saved approximately $200,000 to $250,000 a year. And, you know, over 10 years, that adds up. So what I want to do is I want to look at places in the county budget, yeah, that 35%. I want to take a look at it. I understand, yeah, I truly do. I understand that the facilities department isn't going to be happy when we look at this, if we do indeed decide as a board to look at it. But if there's a possibility that we can save $100,000 a year, over 10 years, that adds up. And that is what, in my opinion, it's going to take for us to pay down our unfunded pension liability. We are paying approximately $200,000 to $250,000 a year for a swimming pool. Is that a service that we want to continue to provide? Now, if you take a look at results-based governing, you know, if the results were every child in Grand Traverse County learned to swim, which, by the way, happens to be the YMCA's mission, one of the Y's missions, and they are providing free swimming lessons. You know, if that was the result that we got for that $200,000 to $250,000, you know, maybe residents would be more apt to step up to the plate and pay that $200,000 to $250,000 a year. Maybe we should ask them. Maybe we should put it on the ballot and say, do you want to support a swimming program? And based on, you know, every child learning how to swim in Grand Traverse County or whatever. But unless we take a look at that 30 to 35%, I mean, I don't understand, it's very frustrating to me. I don't understand why we just don't advertise for a licensed plumber and put them in the jail. That, to me, makes perfect sense. Instead of bumping people that don't have plumbing skills when clearly we need a plumber in the jail. I mean, so that's where I'm headed.
I think, you know, just to wrap it up in an effort of time here, I will take the chair's ability to have the last word, though, on this. I've heard a whole lot of what we can't do, but I haven't heard many people say what we can do. You know, at the risk of sounding like one of my kids who's angry, don't tell me what I can't do. We got put in these chairs for a reason. We got 2 years, and I'm kind of tired of it. You know, we get all these interviews, and oh, it's the new board, and what are you going to do, and what do you want to do? And every time one of us says something we want to do, somebody that's been here says you can't do that. We already did it. Well, then why was I sworn in? I mean, I'm spending an awful lot of time to sit in a chair to do nothing. I don't think any of the people that went to the voters' booth and voted for me wanted me to do nothing. So I'm going to keep saying ideas at the risk of sounding ridiculous, and everyone can tell me I can't do it, but I'm certain there's something we can do. I'm certain there's something we can do. It might not fix it, but it sure is going to put us in a better place than when we were sworn in last week. Because we're looking at a very negative culture about this county. We're looking at debt. We're looking at employees that we want to help. I want to help them. Don't tell me what I can't do. Help me. Help me make the decision. There's 7 of us that get to decide. Help me. Every time you tell me what I can't do, tell me something I can do. I'm going to save John and Jean, who have sat through this, and call up new business B, which is for immediate approval, an extension on a MSHDA grant. And I am going to recommend that the board authorize and direct the chairman and the county administrator to approve and endorse, oh, I'm sorry, Jen Siemens, wrong one. I'm going to recommend for immediate approval the grant extension, Amendment 7, through June 30th, 2015, of the, I don't see a specific, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority Community Development Award. Close enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Support.
Okay. Discussion with Jean. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I present, or do you want me to answer questions immediately? I wasn't sure. I know there's
I have a question, but I don't care which way you go.
Why don't we just ask questions and make it more efficient? Unless if there's something, and just cue in if you
I just wanted, this is a grant that we received in 2010. It was originally for $243,900. We have been working with a property owner and a homeowner who is ineligible for this program, and when we received the extension, but by the time we got our bids, the contractor could not get in and do the work before the end of the year, and now he can't get in to get it till spring because most of the work is for roofing, installation, and outside repair work. So MSHDA has been very gracious. They've been a great partner with us. It's the only grant that would be eligible for this type of work, and we are respectfully asking that we can utilize the full grant amount to use to be able to work with the homeowner on this.
Chris, and then Bob?
My question is more of a process question. This is for immediate approval. The letter from the Housing Development Authority is dated December 18th, and it was received December 26th.
Correct.
Why is this on my desk for immediate approval instead of in the board packet so that I can read it ahead of time?
Because I got an email from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. They have HUD audit review right now, and they have to have this in there for their audit review.
That's not my question. My question is, it was received December 26th. Why wasn't it in the board packet? Because one of the things, please understand...
Why wasn't it in your December board packet?
Yeah, well, no, why wasn't it in the board packet instead of on my desk for...
Oh, why wasn't it in the proper...
Is it in the board packet? Maybe it's...
No. Commissioner Maxbauer, what I thought is I could get that through to your Ways and Means Committee. I didn't know that I needed to have that approved so quickly.
Okay.
So I thought I had until the end of the month.
Okay.
And I didn't have to have it now. But when I got the email, I needed it now.
All right.
So I thought I had another 2 weeks.
For me, it's just, one of the things I'm trying to do as we move forward is avoid last-minute stuff on my desk.
Understand, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
And my apologies, and I thank you.
You explained it. Thank you.
Bob?
I have more of a comment than a question. I met with John and Jean earlier today, and I was going to tag on to this last discussion before the chair closed it.
You can talk, Commissioner
But we also need to look at what can we do to increase this tax base, and I think they're working hard on trying to do that. We need to make sure we partner with them and don't get so focused on cutting when we can also try to increase our tax base. So.
Okay, anyone else? We have a motion. Sonny?
Gene, just to back up a minute, you said this MSHDA grant, and I know because of some other seats I sit in, it was $242,000. That entire $242,000 isn't being used on this one project, is it?
No, this was a project that assisted close to 15 homeowners.
Well, that was the point I wanted to make, is the fact that we received a $242,000 grant, Community Development Block Grant type thing, for residential improvements for homeowners. And this one project didn't get finished. MSHDA is allowing us to extend the date of that to finish that project. You know, I didn't want anyone to assume either here or on TV when you talked about a $240,000 grant that we were using it to fix this house because the lady couldn't afford to make roofing improvements.
No, this went a long ways for the 250. It was spread over many homeowners.
Are there any other questions? We have a motion in support. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Jean.
Thank you, Jean.
Second public comment. Anyone feeling good about that? John?
Good evening, John Syke, Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County. I'll just be brief. I wasn't going to say anything, but the discussion about results-based governing, the board talked about this a few years ago. You know, there's some other terms, priority-based budgeting, budgeting for outcomes, and I think those are really good concepts. We did some research on those when the board was actually considering retaining a consultant to assist with that process. I will say, though, that it does require a strong commitment from the board if you go down that road, and it does require, I think it's really important, is to engage the public. and to determine what those priorities and what they're willing to pay for and what they don't see as a priority. And I think that's really important because that gives you the basis to make those tough decisions that you would have to make if you go down through that process. And in that engagement, I think it's really important that it not be swayed by, special interests. So, kind of an open forum doesn't necessarily always get you the true response from all across the public. But I do think in setting performance measurements for departments is a good idea, but I think it has to be based on what really the public is willing to support. It also does require the commitment and relationship between the board and the departments so that you ensure that those performance measurements are being met and that there is actually true enhancement and greater efficiencies that are done through the operations of the various departments. So I just wanted to kind of comment on that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will close public comment. Commissioner committee reports. Did anyone have anything they wanted to share at this time? Okay. Dr. Johnson, I would like to hear your comment.
I have one too.
Okay. It's commissioner comment time.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just said it. We need to make sure that as we look at this budget and everything, we still focus also on trying to increase tax base, which I think we all agree with, but to do everything we can. I think we are I'm actually optimistic that we're turning the corner in this county with housing and with new businesses coming in. And I'm hopeful that our job will be made a little easier next year at budget time because the revenues have increased. And yes, we will make the tough decisions. That's what we got paid for, and that's what we signed up to do. So.
That's right. Carol, and then Sunny.
My only comment was I would caution us not to discount how big a difference all these little amounts could add up to over time. Somebody says, well, so you save $10,000 a year. In all kinds of different places, all these little things can add up. And even in our own lives, when we are budgeting for our own personal finances, you don't think that coffee that you get every day, that $2.50 or $3, well, it's small, I'm so in debt it doesn't matter. It does. All those little things that we could do to make it better can add up. It might not add up ever, of course, to $44 million, but it will help as we go along. So I don't want anybody to discount and say, well, we owe so much that to only look at 35% of our budget, it's not going to matter. It is. All these little things can definitely add up over time.
Commissioner Wheeler.
I guess the comment that I would make is that looking at efficiencies in our budget can't stop at 35% of our budget. We need to look at those efficiencies in our entire budget. To think that we're going to balance this thing on the back of any single department, we've seen all different kinds of proposals over the years that says, okay, yeah, we can balance the budget. We just get rid of 5 deputies, 1 sergeant, and 1 lieutenant. Well, that's just simply not an acceptable method to look at. But the fact is that there's those that probably don't think I do, but I've been a long supporter of the Sheriff's Department and the court systems. I meet regularly with the judges. I certainly have conversations with all of the command staff at the jail and at the Sheriff's Department. But that being said, we can't stop when we look at efficiencies at only looking at those other departments. We have to look at all of them. Okay.
Dr. Latham.
I think we need outside help. Somebody like Public Strategies, it doesn't have to be them. I think that even though we have wonderful people and great minds, we need something to compare and contrast it with so that we're not so myopic. And I don't think it has to cost a lot of money to get that process started. I know that there's a city downstate that did that, and they were in worse shape than we are, and brought it back. So I'm hoping that this group will realize that, and it's no insult to anybody to bring in a second opinion. It gives us some scaffolding, something to hang our hat on, something to discuss, some direction of discussion, some leadership. I'm not saying that Dave's not capable of that. I'm saying I just want a second opinion. And I think we should bring in a professional group to help this. This is a big problem.
Do we have any notices or announcements, Dave?
No.
Dean? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. And we have no need for a closed session, so if there's no opposition, I will adjourn the meeting.
John?
So funny.